Aber es scheint uns eigentlich natürlich schön, dass ihr da draußen
And one. Det kan gå tillbaka ett par steg.
right, and would you listen kindly? One up,
Renata, straight ahead.
one step, and down,
One look to
please.
your left, please, to the corner, yes.
And first look down.
Right corner, please.
The right
corner. Thank you.
And straight down.
Know that you speak at the same time.
Yeah, we are
Very
aware.
hard to hear.
That's part of the game.
Okej, hör på en norrman här.
Would you be so kind to look to me?
Yes. Just on the left, please. Right ahead, please.
For me, please.
And one look to your left, please.
Thank you.
One for the right, please.
Just in the middle here, please.
One look up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Starting on the left, please. Yes, that's it. Perfect.
And just straight ahead.
And to the left.
And on the right, please.
Left, right, please.
On the right, please.
And straight, please.
Straight ahead again, please.
To me.
And just here, please.
Nice.
And the right corner, please.
Just one more in the middle here, please. One more here.
Look up, look up.
And
Come
here.
to me, please. Thank
And just
you.
on your left side. Just,
One step forward.
sorry, one more possible.
And straight ahead, please.
Just on your left.
One down.
And next to him as well.
And
One more time to your left. In the corner, right in the
one
corner.
more.
Yeah.
Look up to me, please.
Yes, that's it.
Look up on the right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
We're going to bring out Adam Pearson.
Brilliant.
Hello, sir.
And to the left, one more time.
One more to the right, please. Yes, perfect.
And straight ahead, please.
And again here, please. Thank you. One step forward, if possible.
To the left, please.
Straight ahead again, please.
And one for the right, please. Yes.
Just one more in the middle here.
Uh,
Right.
please turn on the right a little bit. Turn on the right. Would you please turn on the right?
On the right.
Yeah.
Last time.
Yeah, really good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The right corner.
Back to your left, please. And in the middle, just look back there. Just there, please.
One look up, please.
And just back to me again. Thank you.
Can you step a bit?
And one look to the left, please, to that corner. Yeah, that's it. Perfect.
And the right, please.
Yeah.
One more look on the right corner.
On the right.
And one more look down, please.
Sebastian. Before you go right to the left.
Sebastian. Sebastian, to us, please.
And one
And the left corner one time.
In the right corner, please. Yeah.
Sebastian, look up.
And just here on the left. Thank you.
And here would be the left.
All right, one more. We're going to do a cash shot.
Sebastian.
Nice one.
Don't leave me hanging.
Yeah, sure.
And let's start on the left here.
Together, please. Together.
Let's start on the left side.
A little bit more left.
From the left corner.
Together here.
Just looking up in the middle, please.
Yeah, straight ahead, please.
That's the right, please. One more.
And to the right. Look up.
And just here on the left, please. Thank you.
And all time right.
Please, in the right corner. Right corner.
To the right, please.
And also to the left corner, please. Left
No,
corner.
just all up to the middle here.
Yeah, together, please.
Right, everyone straight ahead, please.
Now it's working.
You guys get into fights?
Sometimes.
Alright, one more and then we're gonna bring our
Only away from work.
Don't get in my sample.
That's a smiley art.
Sebastian.
You guys all know each other.
Too long.
To the right.
Like if you see each other on an airplane,
Some
you
yes,
say
some-
hi.
All right, bring
It
it.
depends.
No, you try to ignore this guy tomorrow.
Because he's not giving you so much space. When you say look here, he's saying it right after.
Keep aufstehen. Keep
Alright, one more.
Parallel screen.
Nice woman.
Can you all look here, please?
Alright, thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Have a nice day, you too.
Nur wenige US-amerikanische.
Only a few US films are represented at this year's Berlinale. One of them is the competition entry A Different Man by New York director and author Aaron Schimberg, his third film already. His remarkable stories have made him a critic's favorite. The film is about an ambitious New York actor, Edward, portrayed by the well-known Sebastian Stan. He undergoes radical plastic surgery and changes his life, which turns into a nightmare, a dark yet funny psychological thriller with Norwegian superstar Renate Reinsve and Adam Pearson, an actor and activist against the discrimination of people with disabilities. Coming up, the press conference for the competition film A Different Man.
Good morning and welcome to the press conference of A Different Man, playing as an international premiere in the competition of the 74th Berlinale. I'm Sergio Fant, I'm one of the programmers of the festival, and I'm very glad to welcome our guests. And I will start from the left end of the table with Adam Pearson. Welcome, Adam. We are welcoming her today, but we will welcome her again when it's another filming competition this year, Renate Reinsve. And starring in the double role of Edward and Guy, Sebastian Stan. And writer and director, Aaron Schoenberg. Welcome, Aaron. So, please, we already have some questions. Let's start there, and then we go here.
Good morning. Hello, Sebastian. I'll kind of start with you. I was really overwhelmed with the contrast between the physical and the emotional of this movie. So let's start with the physical. How long did it take to go through that process? And the emotional, too, because as the film, and I don't want to give too much away, kind of states that what happens when everybody judges you by the outside, what happens when you get that, is the inside not beautiful anymore. And so I was wondering, as you went through this journey, what kind of emotional insights did you get about, how we're all viewed?
Well, you better accept yourself. The sooner the better, the sooner the easier, I think, if there is such a thing as easy anymore. But yeah, it was about a 2-hour process in the morning. Mike Marino was a great artist, and he came on, and we were doing that. And obviously, when you have such a massive transformation, a lot of things get affected. Your physicality, behavior, and everything else sort of was informed from that. And then, of course, it inevitably, it also leads to the emotional kind of learning lessons that come from that. I think, as I expressed before, particularly for me, was the experience of having had the opportunity to walk around New York City, as Edward, and the limited amount of contact that I had with the world really was informing for me in many ways, because there's not much other ways for me that I would have really understood what that experience is. It lives between two extremes, as I was saying. It lives between overcompensation and complete uncomfortability, and we have to find a better way. I think I don't want to speak for Aaron. I think he can say it more eloquently than me, but when I was looking at this film, I think that's what I understood, and I was drawn to was that this offers us a little bit, perhaps a different way of looking at it, so that we don't always have to live between these extremes of totally ignoring, but then overcompensating that as we do.
Please, thank you.
Hello, I'm Lazar Christian from Derek Radio, Bulgaria. First, I want to congratulate all the cast for the very interesting film. I really liked it, and I have a question for all 4 members of the movie. First, to Sebastian, what do you think because in the course of this story, we see different opinions, and the opinions of your character and the views of your character and Renate's character change. And we see this man in the beginning of the story who has this lack of appreciation and this lack of love, as he thinks he's not perfect for this woman that he cherishes. And what do you think happens after the manipulation, after his transformation from this so-called beast, as they call him, to this perfect man? What do you think his goal is, and why do you think he didn't succeed in the end? And
I have to call you out a little bit on the choice of words there, because I think part of why the film is important is because we often don't have maybe even the right vocabulary, right? I mean, I think it's a little bit more complex than that, and obviously there's language barriers and so on and so forth. But beast isn't the word, I think, right? And I think ultimately, it's just interesting to hear this point, because I feel like to some extent it shows us. I think that's one of the things that the film is saying. Is that we have these preconceived ideas and sort of these. We're not really educated on how to really understand this experience in particularly. The things that you're saying about him at the beginning, that's your interpretation, right? Everyone might have a different interpretation of what he's going through. That might not be it. It might have been just for you, So I can't really speak to that. I think it's just one of the things I love about the movie is that he's offering you sort of a way to kind of look at it, and hopefully if you can have the same objective point of view over while you're experiencing the film, then maybe you can kind of pick apart the initial instincts that you have, and maybe those aren't always the right ones.
Next shorter question, please.
So I have a question for the director. I'm Lida, I'm a freelancer. We see that the face of Edward goes to stages, and also the play goes to stages. So this seems to be a pivotal concept of the film, the layers and layers that are peeled off until something reaches a completely different form than it originally seemed to have, which might even be truer to the original self. And I wanted to ask, how much stages did your script, the concept, go through? Was there a lot of changing and working with the actors and putting it in different directions, like we see it happen on the screen?
The finished film is nearly identical to the script. It's a little shorter. I took out a few scenes, but while the concept of the film was coming together, it went through a few stages. It started as a sort of started from two ideas. I had a sort of Jekyll and Hyde story idea that I was playing with, and then another story that is almost impossible to describe. And I couldn't make headway on either of these scripts, and then I put them together, and I realized that I saw a path forward. So once I wrote the script, there was basically a draft, and the movie is more or less true to that. If that answers your question.
Please, here.
Good day, Oraz Kiribayev, Kazakhstan. My question goes to the director, Aaron. I'd like to ask, so in the beginning, Edward gets compared to a lot of characters of Woody Allen, and throughout the movie we see some different inspirations in terms of style and the feeling to some of the Woody Allen's movies. So I'd like to ask, how did that part come along, and how much of your movie was actually inspired by Woody Allen's work? Thanks.
I don't know. I think you live in New York. People, it started out as a joke. I think people often will say to me, especially people not from New York, they'll say, "Oh, you remind me of Woody Allen," which I think is just a way of saying you're an awkward person. So it really started with that. It was just sort of a throwaway joke. And certainly, I would count him as an influence among many influences. I think a lot of it is just subconscious. Woody Allen appears in the film, or a mention of him, but so do other figures and ideas that recur a few times in the film.
Please.
Hello, Keith McAvoy from Comic Buzz in Ireland. I have an open question for the cast to ask, what would be your overall message that you'd like audience to take away, or is it open to interpretation? Start with Adam.
I think it's very open to interpretation. It would have been really easy to make this film a little bit more, I don't know what, campaigny or shouty and get on a soapbox. But I think audiences are a lot more intelligent than others would sometimes give them credit for. And something that would have been more campaigny, it would have been good, it would have been all right, but a good film will change what an audience thinks for maybe a day. But a great film will change how an audience thinks for the rest of their lives. And Aaron Schimberg is in the great film business.
Am
I supposed to answer, or is it... Because I didn't hear the start of the question, I'm sorry. What was the start of the question? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love movies that ask the questions but don't really answer it, so it lingers on in your mind, and it asks a lot of... I think when I saw it the first time, I was a little shocked. It asks a lot of, very good questions.
Here we have a question, and then we go there.
Das ist für the director. Adam, what was your original motivation for this movie? Because what I understand is this identity and the mask we have going through the world, and I was thinking about the psychologist Carl Jung, who said, when you look outside, you dream, but when you look inside of you, you're awake. And what was your original motivation? Because when the figure looked inside of him, there's no way to change your face and to change everything inside of you. What was the original motivation for you to write the script?
It's hard to answer that simply, but for one thing, I was born with a cleft palate, meaning I was born with a hole in my face, and I've always, which has been corrected to a point. They closed it up, but the mark of it remains, and I've certainly gone through life always wondering, how much of this defines me? How much does this cleft palate, does this flaw, as it's often considered, how often does it, or how much does it define me for other people, but also to myself? And if I had been born differently, if I could fix it now, fix it more than it has been fixed, what would change about me? So I always have these sort of thoughts. I've lived my life with these thoughts, so I can draw upon these thoughts. And then beyond that, so I've been making work about this. This is my third film, and my second with Adam Pearson. So I wanted to work with Adam again. And in my last film, it was always very important to me, if I'm making films about disfigurement, to cast people with disfigurements. And yet, when I did that, some people called the very idea exploitative, and I thought, that's interesting. If you cast somebody who doesn't have a disfigurement, and you put them in makeup, that seems to go against the ideas of representation that we're all talking about now. And yet, if you cast somebody with a disfigurement, that's inherently exploitative. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And this is a way of avoiding the issue altogether. So I sort of thought, okay, well, I'll make a movie and I'll do both, and I'll have these two, somebody in makeup and somebody with a disfigurement, and I'll put them in a movie, and I'll have them sort of go to war with each other, both as characters and also as ideas, and see what happens. So these were some of the inspirations behind it.
Thank you. We go there, please.
Hello, Johannes Litschl from Radio X in Frankfurt, Germany. I have a question for Aaron. First of all, thank you very much for the interesting movie. For me, it was a very obvious and also very interesting kind of meta film, discourse film, dealing with these questions and the debates we are dealing right now about like codes of ethics, who's allowed to play which role, who can play which role, who can be casted, for which role. In movie business, in serious productions, and at least when the theater sequence comes in, this was for me very obvious. And I would like to ask you whether you can elaborate a little bit about this. Thank you.
I think these issues are in the film. I mean, I think I've always sort of wondered about these issues, you know, who, especially as I mentioned, having a cleft palate and not seeing a lot of other directors who had any kind of disfigurement, so therefore not a lot of films about it, or the films that were about this issue of disfigurement being inadequate, I guess I would say, and to this day, I mean, in the past year, I can think of 2 things I saw where a character has a cleft palate and it's just makeup. And so, to me, just to making the film, I feel like I'm coming from a personal place, and then if I'm engaging with those issues about representation or the ethics of representation, I'm not really trying to. It's not. You know, I don't want to get too heavily involved in that discourse. I really just want to make a personal film. But these questions come up, and like I said, with my last movie, just making a personal film and still getting criticism sort of from both sides. I'm just. It forces me to sort of go deeper and just constantly sort of ask the questions within the movie. So in that way, it talks specifically about these issues of representation in the film.
We have about 5 minutes more, so let's keep the next question short, please.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for that great multi-level movie, because it sort of grows on you while you are watching it and you're opening new doors. My question is, in the film, there is this idea of normalizing people with different looks, we find not very beautiful, something that we do not see often. But if we see different faces, we can perceive different kinds of beauty and see like through the outside to the inside. Could you comment on that a bit? Because I think it's sort of such a simple idea, but it still works, and we still could not come in terms with it, basically. Because if we show more people with different types of faces, say, maybe it would basically help for us to treat differently someone who is like not maybe of classical Dorian Gray beauty.
Thank you. Who wants to? You have a specific person you want to answer, or?
Adam,
Yeah, no, I'll take this one. So, no, I agree. I think, as Sebastian said, he went out and about in New York in the makeup and experienced the 2 sides of the spectrum, the overcompensation and the avoidance. And I was also, you know, we shot it in New York for 2 months, so I'm dealing with that as well. And I think the more, and I get the initial response, when we see something that we're not used to, we go into this bizarre fight, flight, or freeze mode. And then, but the more you see something you're not used to, the more you eventually get used to it. And slowly but surely, that curiosity, and it is curiosity to begin with, like slowly fades away. Like when I got to New York, I was like based in Manhattan. Whenever I'm going to be anywhere for a long period of time, I find my coffee spot, I find my breakfast spot, and I find my bar, and I make those like my 3 touch points. And initially, you know, when you first rock up, we've got to do a lot of heavy lifting and do 90% of the legwork in a conversation to, as you say, normalize it, destigmatize it, and get people used to this new experience that they're having. But then the more you do it, the easier it gets, and then the less people see it. And the only way to challenge people's perception on something, and truly challenge it, is to gently and kindly expose them to it. And the more we can do that and have conversations like the one we're having now, the easier and more organic that all eventually becomes. And as I said earlier, I've got no business in shouting people into submission. I love a good, honest conversation, a little bit of loving, graceful correction, when needed, but the more we can see people who don't fall into the, as the earlier question was, don't fall into the category of like beautiful. I think we've done the word beauty a massive disservice by quantifying it. And so the more we can see people who aren't like us in not just in the media, but out in the real world, the more we get used to it. And everyone's different, everyone's messed up. Let's all be different and messed up together.
Please, we go. We have...
Hello. Thanks, Aaron, and everybody for the beautiful movie. And I have a question for Aaron. So, if the movie had ended at the moment Edward physically transforms, we would have had a very conventional fairy tale. But I see you went there and you took this fairy tale and you turned it on its head. So we have the character of Ostwald being introduced, and it's showing Edward everything he could have been had he owned his appearance. So I find this twist of events very intriguing, and I was wondering if you had any literary or artistic influences that you cited this from. Thank you.
I sort of started from this broad psychological cliche that the way which I don't know how much truth there is to it, but the way that we judge other people is sort of a reflection of how we see ourselves. And so, and the other thing, you know, if you have somebody in a film that is being mistreated, even if you may mistreat this person in real life, if you see this person being mistreated, a viewer will often distance themselves from those, you know, anybody who's tormenting a protagonist. So I wanted to sort of create a movie where, in a sense, Edward is discriminating against Oswald, but he's not doing it out of cruelty. We know that he's not doing it out of cruelty or out of ignorance. He's doing it because he's thinking about himself. And so we can sort of stay with him and we understand why he, you know, why he's treating Oswald this way. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with his behavior, but we're seeing it from his point of view. So, so I sort of started with that idea. You know, how do we? I think one of the problems that I've seen with all films about disfigurement is that immediately our heart goes out to this disfigured person, because he's the protagonist of a film. And yet, if we saw this person in real life, we may reject them. So I wanted to create a film in which a character is rejecting him, but start exploring why that is and whether it's really about this other person or whether it's about ourselves.
Let's try to take one more question, please.
Hi, I really enjoyed the film. I've got a bit of a self-indulgent question about the ending, if that's okay. Specifically, Adam's character calls Sebastian's character Edward at the end, and it goes by us without like a reaction. And I wondered if you could comment on the significance of that. And also, who was the blonde woman supposed to be in the sort of cafe bit at the end that Sebastian's kind of staring over at? Thank you.
These are mysteries, and I have to answer. The Edward thing, I swear I could be, you know, maybe I'm unaware of my own subconscious, but I swear it was a typo in the script. I said Edward, and it was the one time I made the mistake, and it happened to be the last line, and Adam came up to me when we were shooting the scene. He said, "It says Edward here," and I said, "Yeah." What should we do?
Has Oswald known the whole time?
Yeah,
and he's just been the whole time back in with Guy.
Yeah,
and is Oswald just the bad guy at the end of it all?
I didn't want to necessarily suggest that. I thought, well, he could call him Edward. They're talking about Edward, or maybe he's misspeaking, or maybe he knew. And I think maybe we shot it. Or I think in the end I just said, all right, just say it. It doesn't matter. And but it is a curious moment and a curious mistake that I made there.
It was a deliberate editorial choice. It was a deliberate choice that ultimately wins awards.
Sorry, what?
He just wants to win.
Oh, yeah, he wants to win.
We're in a competition, baby.
Yeah, it is a competition. The woman at the end is seen previously twice in the movie. She's seen with two other men. One of them is me in the movie, and so she's a recurring character.
So thank you for all your questions, and most of all, thanks to our guests for joining the conference.